What's going on, Macro Perspective peeps? Seamus and Marcos here with an amazing episode. I think this is going to be an episode where some guys nerd out about training and tracking that training, but then the future of technology of tracking. Today we have an amazing guest, Ben Katz. Ben Katz is the CEO and founder of Hybrd, the first, as far as I know, the first app that can truly quantify all the data from your biometric wearables to your cardiovascular training. But for the first time that I've seen as an exercise scientist and a background in health and fitness, quantifying resistance training quantities and qualities and actually tying that together to see how far you can go with your training and understand where you're going. And a lot of his background actually comes from the fact that he had a lot of growth and leading product teams at Whoop. So that kind of mindset comes from Whoop, and Whoop we know to be one of the best apps for HRV, understanding rest and strain. But I think even Hybrd goes beyond that because it's a tracker of training, and at some point probably will do more for the hybrid athlete community as more than a tracker, maybe a community space, and can be great even for professional fitness coaches and nutrition coaches. I bet you there's something there. So this conversation, Ben, is going to be just exploring and talking about you. But Ben, yeah, man, thanks so much. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm so glad we connected. What's been going on in your neck of the woods? What are you excited about? By the time this episode drops, it's probably by the time your product drops publicly, right?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. I'm super pumped to be here. Always great to chat with other people, especially with athletic backgrounds, sports science backgrounds that just love. They're in it for the love of the game on the training side. A lot of super exciting stuff on our side at Hybrd. By the time this episode comes out, we'll have just launched publicly for the first time, which I'm very pumped about. We spent about 6 months in an invitation/application only phase, which was a really powerful way for us to be very specific with who we targeted and make sure that all of the feedback and all the data we were tracking, et cetera, was all coming from one type of user to make sure that we really solve problems for that user very intentionally and thoughtfully. And so, I think we're finally where we need to be to start opening up that funnel and letting the public see what we've been working on. I'm really excited for that.
I love it. Marcus, you want to say something real quick? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you for giving us some time, first and foremost, as well. But man, what made you start your own startup company that had to delve into, a really popular and hot field? I think it's really taken off in the last 6 to 12 months. I know that we could just look at Hyrox as the, main example here of what's really kind of boasting more of this. Again, I feel
growth.
Yeah, but CrossFit's been around for forever. We'll call it like over 20 years now, right? But the idea of having a more like running forward type of hybrid approach, whereas like CrossFit definitely has it integrated, but I've found that like local gyms, in a sense, most of our local boxes are going to more than likely not have running be like the quintessential piece that is there like on the daily. So what made you come up with it and get it all started?
Yeah, I've known for a really long time that I was going to start my own business. I studied entrepreneurship and finance in college, and then my career has been basically this non-linear entrepreneur learning by doing experience where I started out in sales, went from sales to analytics to product management, and then from product management into starting my own business. And every one of those decisions was made with the idea of what is going to help me learn the skills I need to learn in order to succeed in my own thing. Mm-hmm. I spent a really long time trying to figure out whether I would rather work on something in the fitness space, which is what I'm super passionate about, or something that is, a more standard B2B SaaS type of business opportunity. Reason being that, theoretically, B2B SaaS should have a statistically higher likelihood of positive outcome versus the consumer fitness tech space, which is incredibly dense with competition and really challenging. Yeah. Not that B2B SaaS isn't, it's just a different type of thing, but if I'm going to be working 12, 15 hours a day for 10 years on something, I want it to be something I'm really...
I was about to say.
The space was the one that I really wanted to be in, but I needed to find an opportunity in that space that was an actual market opportunity to build something that users could love and that had its own niche market.
Yeah, which is wild, by the way, with your product.
Well, like you said, incredibly competitive. Also, for the listeners out there, B2B SaaS, business to business software as a service. So I want to put that out there because a lot of people, we talk about it all the time, whether it's like in the business space or even in the realm of like clinical. And sometimes it's like, again, the jargon that we're throwing around too often. I'm like, whoa, hold on.
You're totally right.
I only learned what SaaS was like a couple of years ago. So
I thought SaaS was like when you're getting like nitpicky or like a little bit of attitude,
Yeah. Well, that too.
Yeah. So would you say that like the personal experiences that you have as like a hybrid athlete obviously led to this, and then obviously you kind of mentioned like basically your upbringing in the unconventional way also helped you kind of shape like combining like those marrying the two worlds in a sense, right?
Yeah. From a how we kind of arrived here perspective, I got very frustrated. I'm a huge data nerd. Like I wear a Whoop and a Garmin 24/7, wear a Polar Heart strap when I'm doing any type of cardio activity on top of those. I used to track my weightlifting and heavy, have a bike computer, have Zwift, etc. And I
Ben,
got really frustrated when
before you
training
move forward,
for
I
yeah.
love that because I'm like kind of the same way. I was telling one of the guys I advise with the AA company, I was like, I wish my life was just recorded so that like, it sounds stupid because it's like all data privacy laws, but like I wish just it was just recorded so that like the next day there's like prompts of like, well, this is what you did yesterday. Everything is recorded now. This is how you optimize the next day.
Yeah, I got really frustrated that it felt like the entire like every fitness tech product was basically one of three buckets. You've got your cardio based type of apps, you've got your strength based type of apps, and then you have your hardware companion apps. And as somebody that does a bunch of different types of training every single day and is like trying to optimize to this balance of I want to be really strong, but I also want to be pretty fast, the thing that I care about is in the middle. And the thing that every athlete should theoretically care about is in the middle as well, because every workout is just one puzzle piece amid this broader puzzle of all of your training. And
Yeah.
without understanding what the puzzle actually looks like, how are you supposed to know where to put the piece? And we're trying to actually help athletes put that puzzle together for the first time.
Yeah, I can definitely say for me, I knew that hybrid was the real deal when I saw all the data that I pulled from my running because I'm getting ready for a half marathon, but I'm also still strength training because I want to keep certain qualities going for hypertrophy. And I also have a few high roxes this year. So I was like, I'm not
Nice.
losing those qualities. They're just dimmed down, kind of like dimmer switches, like some are up, some are down, but the qualities are still being hit. And it literally said for like 4 days straight, I was overreaching. And I'm like, maybe this is the first time it's getting to know me. It's only been a few weeks using this app. And then Sunday morning, I even told Marcos, I was like, this fucking app called it. One Sunday morning, I woke up like a cranky little sassy person. And I was like, overreaching. It's true. Like I probably am. Like I'm not recovering well. And it caught it. And I think it's important to kind of see that because if you're not quantifying your training, especially for someone that's like has a goal of like a half marathon in place or like a high rocks or just anything really, you can kind of get lost in the sauce of training because you're just like, I'm hitting the tasks. I'm supposed to hit these tasks. Or even someone that's not hitting those qualities. But it was saying I was overreaching and I really needed to take a few days off because it took until that Sunday to Thursday to feel good again.
Mm-hmm.
And for the app to know that for 4 days straight, I should have really listened because I don't have the capacity to take just 4 days and not train to the quality that I wanted. I was training in bad conditions. But if I
Right.
had listened, I probably would have trained better on those days, right?
And I think that's one of the hardest things about the fragmented tracking that a lot of athletes are doing right now is that
Yeah.
they theoretically track everything. And so they think they have it all figured out, or at least they have their finger on the pulse. But without actually putting all of that data together into one picture, you're actually really not tracking anything at the same
Yeah.
time. Like you have all the pieces, but you have the trees, but you don't have the forest.
Yeah. Could we talk about this for a second about like where the wearables are not meeting kind of like your vision? Because like I love Whoop, but again, it just wasn't really the full story for me. Right. Marcos and I have had different conversations about HRV, and it's from my understanding, Whoop isn't even truly HRV. It's a algorithm from like RFSSD, I believe. I think that's like the short term from it, from the wrist, because it's not from the heart monitor. So Marcos did HRV upon waking with like, I think Morpheus kind of has something like this. And
It
then
was it
yes,
was
it
Elite HRV was what I was using for a
elite.
little bit, but again, same thing. I just find it cumbersome to like kind of want to know, but then also feel like, it says I'm a 10. Very nice. You're a 10. Like every day I was like, fuck, I'm good. Like, it's not working out hard enough to like, get to an 8 or lower, or it's lying, or I'm getting better sleep than I thought, even with 2 kids and sleeping in my son's bed.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
yeah, and
I
also like
love Whoop.
go ahead,
And
yeah,
I love Garmin and
yeah,
you know the and Aura and Apple Watch, et cetera. Like there's a million phenomenal products on the market. The problem is that they can only get certain data points, right? Like
yeah,
basically everything every wearable captures right now is just a function on top of heart rate to some extent. And
yeah,
so when you're trying to say I'm also doing all of this very very heavy lifting that might have your muscles in tatters, but it's not actually impacting your heart rate or your HRV, et cetera, it's not going to pick up on those things. And so the way that I think about a lot of the data that I get from wearables is it's really helpful in understanding a snapshot from a cardiovascular perspective on a given day. Is my cardiovascular system ready to undergo strain? Am I ready from, like, do I have enough sleep? Have I recovered enough from that perspective? But it doesn't capture the, okay, I just did squats and deadlifts yesterday, and now my legs are in absolute shambles. I probably shouldn't go and do an interval workout today, or I might hurt myself. And that's the piece that is a little bit harder. And accumulated load over time is also an important thing to understand and be able to track, because it's, as much as it is about one picture of like that day and saying, am I ready today to go and do something? You need to understand what that broader trend looks like if you want to maintain proper training and stay in the right balance of training hard enough, but not training too hard that you're actually just going to end up burning yourself out.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's like, yeah, the HRV, the cardio, but the strength. So let's talk about that a little bit, like the strength qualities, right? I know on the app right now, I think you're making some changes where it's not just the movements, the functional pattern movements, but you're talking about qualities. I know you're going to work with the sports scientist, or I know you have been working with the sports scientist, but you're going to emphasize the qualities of muscular power, muscular strength, muscular hypertrophy, endurance, and like isometric strength or something like that, as opposed to, not opposed to, but juxtaposing it against cardiovascular traits such as like your 5K time, your 1 mile time, your marathon time.
Yeah, I would say the way that I would think about what we're trying to do right now, there's basically two different pieces of from a like a training metrics perspective. There's the quantification of fitness. How fit are you actually? And how is that trending over time? Are you becoming fitter? And if so, is that coming from gains in strength or gains in cardio? Are those two things trading off against one another? How should you be training in order to maximize that balance? And then the other is from a training load perspective. You know, you have a bunch of different products that have built training load type metrics in the past, and they're basically all built on top of this one data science model that was published in the 1980s called the Bannister impulse response model. And what that model is basically a function on top of heart rate. It's, you know, at a very, very high level, it's what was your heart rate for how long and how does that relate to your maximum heart rate? And that is how you derive the training load. That doesn't impact or account for any of the muscular load or neurological load from particular movements, workouts, etc. And we're trying to quantify those things as well to put together that full picture of everything that an athlete is doing and what it actually means for their bodies and what they should be doing to change things, etc.
How does that, I mean, is there another wearable that ever helps dictate in your dream of dreams that would allow for something like this to actually be monitored? Or is it really just more of like a product of like the force production that you would, you know, use with like a velocity based trainer? Or what would you see as like the most realistic thing here?
Didn't Whoop buy Push at some point?
Whoop did acquire Push, yeah.
That was the one I loved.
Well, I mean, velocity based training is a pretty phenomenal way to track this. It's a matter of how hard is it to actually get an athlete to do that all of the time, and how can you get it to work properly without enough with little enough friction that people will actually do it when you're doing, say, a CrossFit workout or something where it's very high intensity, fast paced. You need to, velocity based training is only as good as the data input. Like, you need to tell it what you're doing to an extent, or at least it needs to know what movements you're doing and then use that to measure how fast you're moving, etc. And so it's really hard to do that accurately for every workout. Yeah. There are other technologies. I know there's a handful of startups like Perch that are trying to do this with cameras. And you need to basically be able to understand how is somebody moving and what are they, like, how much weight are they moving? And what is that relative to what they are theoretically capable of, to understand like what it's actually doing from a muscular perspective. There's some other I'm a little out of my depth on this one, but I talked to a young founder pretty recently who's like a phenomenal mechanical and hardware engineer. And she's working on something that's actually measuring like the electrostimulus within your muscles to understand, like, do you actually have one more rep in you or not? Even if you mentally don't think you can, like, should theoretically be able to quantify, does that muscle have more to give?
Yeah.
But then that requires that you have this like very extensive wearable that like covers your entire arm or your leg. And, you know, there's this balance between how accurate can you be and how can you reduce friction so that users will actually use the product that you're.
Yeah, I think it's the reducing the friction. Like, all I can think of is like, for example, that Push device or like the Tendo unit, like all these different VBT, velocity based trainers, but the problem with them is the setup. Like you have to put it on the thing, click the app, and then kind of like choose what exercise you have to do, and you kind of have to like stay on that movement until you're pretty much done. Like when I used the push, for example, when I was in strength and conditioning in the college rooms, we'd have the iPad set up on like these 5 squat racks. They're just kind of like right there face level, and then the little push thing go around the barbell, and you do your move. You choose the move. Yep. You tell the athletes, choose the barbell clean for today. And if people weren't moving with the clean previously from the week before, we can tell that their HRV or their nervous system wasn't ready for that day. So I would go, all right, you're trying to hit, I don't know, 1.2 meters per second as fast as you can, but the weight is a little too heavy for you right now. We're going to stay on the same velocity, but we're going to drop the load. So we would train this velocity training, but we wouldn't do the same load just so that their nervous system can still do it and handle it and not get injured. But that was probably the only way. I wouldn't know how you would do it from like go to a kettlebell swing, go to a sled push, go to this. I don't know how I would know that. It would just be like such a weird thing.
Well, I think one thing that I'm pretty bullish on in the long term is like glasses as a wearable. There's 2 big use cases that I'm super excited about. One is nutrition, for obvious reasons. If it can look at everything that you're putting in your mouth, it can track your calories for you theoretically. Like that will be incredible. Like it's a super high friction thing today that nobody wants to track because it sucks. And then the other is, even from a weightlifting perspective, if I can see it, so can the glasses. And so it knows how much weight's on the bar. It knows what movement I'm doing. It knows what that should be. Like if you program it in properly or integrate with Hybrd, et cetera, it knows what you're theoretically capable of, and it can start to do these calculations for you without you having to actually do the like manual logging of everything. The magic in the reason why so many people track cardio is because it's as easy as start, stop. And we're trying to figure out how do we actually create that same frictionless experience for weightlifting tracking, which is like how we approach the AI powered experience that we have now.
Ooh. Yeah. God,
man,
that's such a great thing, man. Marcos, I can see your head spinning, brother, in a good way.
Well, I mean, actually, it was funny because Max over at Align Physical Therapy was did a Instagram video, and it had like a little I don't even know if you guys know this, like inside of the corner of Instagram, it had the little looks like glasses, and I was like, okay, what does that mean? And like he actually the Meta Ray-Bans, right? So it like Meta is literally telling you how this content is being produced, and then there's also like the AI button as well. And it's fascinating to think that like, okay, you're mentioning glasses because that's like the visual input, and we already know how that all seems or looks or feels or whatever. But then think about like, I mean, setting up for a barbell movement or a kettlebell swing, like if someone would then probably track the head and use accelerometers, you could probably figure out the velocity that's going on there. And funny enough, we actually have had a guy inside of our clinic, and he's like an accelerometer specialist. Like legit, he told me he developed a accelerometer that's like the size of like a speck of dust. Like it's so small, but it just like can't like get utilized into anything. But I can imagine as hardware can become smaller and smaller and more use cases, like if I were to put any money on it, it looks at like the head positions and how the head moves and all these movements over time for functional fitness applications, whereas the VBT might make more sense for, the more conventional lifts.
Totally. And I've been saying this a lot lately with all the advances in AI, but a pretty safe bet is that the worst technology will ever be again is how good it is today. And it's only going to get better and better. And it these are going to be solved problems.
Yeah. Speaking of that, it's like the latency of this, like from when we first started, like it was always like slow uploads and like lag with like the voices and all that. And now it's like pretty smooth. And I'm assuming there's a lot of smoothing out that happens on the AI models and how data gets pushed to different places, even when it comes to like the internet and how it's gatekeeping data. Like you're absolutely 100%. I mean, I don't feel like it's like a bullish claim. I feel like I'm experiencing that as it goes on right now.
Yeah. So your app, what I love about it, what people will see is like the Hybrd score, right, Ben? And that Hybrd score is you want to get better, and you can kind of interlay like your previous weeks, because I'm playing with it and it's showing like my previous mileage from the week before, previous strength. But that Hybrd score is the one we wanted to get better, because the higher that score means you're better in all these qualities. Right now, my resistance training on my spider chart is like, it's all good, but my cardio qualities, I'm like, I need to probably get better. I'm not in the higher percentiles with my times.
I'm the
Talk
opposite.
about the percentiles, and then like talk about that cool little marketing thing you guys did. Like, dude, the last 2 weeks, I've been seeing it from like Hybrd pros and stuff about comparing yourself. And I think that's where an app is the best, is that community aspect of like, how do I stand against this person? And what's cool is you can stand against them, because Hybrd is such a data nerd company too.
Totally.
You know what your sled pull is compared to this. Apparently my burpee with my fiance at the last is still one of the second fastest burpees at like that competition. I was like, and then compared to like a pro, we're actually like toe to toe. I was like, okay, maybe I can do something here. But tell us about, how you quantify these metrics, and then like that little spider chart comparison, man.
Yeah, so the Hybrd score that you mentioned, just for the folks listening, is the quantification of fitness that I was talking about before. We tried to take a bunch of different standard movements like powerlifting movements, bench press, deadlift, squat, etc., and a bunch of different cardiovascular race distances, specifically for running right now. We'll expand to additional sports in the future, but things like 5K, 1 mile, half marathon, 10K, etc. And then we compare you relative to people like you for each of those events from a percentile perspective. And so what that means is that we normalize for age, weight, and gender. And so we've got 3 guys on this call, and we're slightly different ages, we're slightly different weights, heights, etc. And we would still be able to compare apples to apples because this metric controls for all of those. And so a fun example I like to give is my co-founder Mats was on the US national rowing team, and he's like a total freak cardio athlete. He's an animal. And I was a high school wrestler like Seamus, and a college lacrosse player. I consider myself more of a weightlifter with some like explosiveness on the cardio side. Our Hybrd like radar plots look the exact opposite. He is like very heavily oriented on cardio, and I'm very heavily oriented on strength. And normally, like, I'll never beat him in a race, and he's never going to lift more than me in the gym. And so there's no real way for us to compete, but we can like compete and talk shit and compare, because we have this like, okay, well, what is your holistic picture of fitness, regardless of whether you're really good at one of these things or the other, et cetera, and how is that changing over time? And so, yes, it can be just me and my boy, but like, because it's age, weight, and gender, like I can compare with my mom or my little sister, or like literally anybody to anybody. We're a team of 4, and our co-founder with the highest Hybrd score is the one woman on the team. I can bench press probably like 150 pounds more than her, but like, she's faster than I am, and relative to women her age and weight and height, like she kills it.
It's scored based off of percentages per those categories. So she's in like the 99th percentile for benching for her. But again, it's just like it factors all those things in there to kind of create that score, right? Is that what's going on? Okay.
Exactly.
Do you have something that you could like share on the screen, like to kind of show that visually by chance?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I could just hold up my phone if that's like the...
No, you could probably just, if you have it on your computer, it might be...
And this too, by the way.
Yeah, let me see if I...
But I think if we do a screen share, you can...
We'll do a screen share so that the people get it too.
Because it's like, I feel like this is a very visual thing, so people...
Yeah, it totally is.
If they want to...
But I love that.
That's why we make the video podcast, guys. So
but I love that though, because it has those benchmarks, and then you can be like, oh, shoot, this is where I'm at, But I also
what's your bias?
If you look at it, I'm all strength. So look at that, dude. Like my times, even though I feel like I'm hauling ass on these 5Ks,
doesn't even register on the radar.
It doesn't even I'm like, dang, do I really? It's crazy because I put so much emphasis on cardio now, like long form cardio, because I was kind of more like Ben, where the cardio was like, dude, a wrestling match is 6 minutes. Maybe 8 with overtime, and then maybe 11 with double overtime, and I've only had 2 matches like that. Like, you think my cardio is like any? No, my cardio is not for a half marathon or a marathoner. Now I'm doing it, and I'm realizing, holy cow, 31-year-olds that like purely just run, right, Ben? They're like, that was their thing. They're really good at that. And we had another Hybrd athlete on here. His name is Blake, and he goes, yeah, when you're young in your 20s, you're either strong or you're cardiovascular, right? Like you're powerful or strong or cardiovascular. It's probably like in your 35s and 40s where you finally like meld the two together. And that's why I think a lot of these Hybrd athletes at 35, 45 are killing it, because they actually figured out how to strength train and do cardio together now without like sticking to one sport. They're just doing it all,
Yeah, totally. I mean, when you're young, also, a lot of these people are athletes, right? And so they spend their entire young athletic life training for one thing. I was focused on being a good lacrosse player and a good wrestler. And there's a certain way to train to optimize that, but that might not be the best way to train if I actually care about a perfect balance between
Yeah.
strength and cardio and just overall health and fitness.
Yeah, it was never balanced for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is it right here.
Yeah. So this is the Hybrd score. I'm sharing a design file. I unfortunately did not have the forethought to come with the simulator prepared, but
It's all good.
we basically give you a radar chart showing you how you stack up from a percentile perspective relative to each of these things. And then I can't scroll too far down. Actually, maybe I can just move this thing. But you can see, like, we'll show you like the percentile from like a bar perspective and give you all these different data points on how you're doing relative to people like you. And then that score 466 fully normalizes for all of those factors and gives you this one overall score that any two athletes can compare and have it actually be an apples to apples measure of how fit are you.
That's cool. What's the highest score possible? 1,000?
The highest score possible is theoretically 1,000.
Okay.
But that requires that you're in the 100th percentile for everything. And if you've ever seen the people that are in the 100th percentile for deadlifts, they're not the same people that are in the 100th percentile for marathons.
But that's the goal, isn't it?
I mean,
Really
I don't think that's possible, but I'll be proven wrong. I'm sure I will.
I think that's the whole point of the hybrid experiment we're having, is like being able to do all that, like the Alec Blennis's of the world, and like the Nick Bears, and like the truly hybrid athletes. And yeah, to constantly put on muscle and strength while constantly still running a sub whatever number you want for a. But I think that definitely has a limit though, Ben, because physics, like Marcus and I are talking about this with one of our cycling friends or cycling performance coaches, and he's like, there comes a point where if you have slabs of muscle on you and you're a cyclist, it doesn't matter how great your cardio is.
Totally.
The physics won't allow you to move.
100%. And that's my point, is like, I don't think anybody will ever have an 1,000.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Tell us about the that marketing ploy that you guys did at the High Rocks games the last few weeks. The same plot, but then for the different movements of High Rocks.
Yeah. So what we did was we obviously, the High Rocks athlete is somebody that cares a lot about the intersection of strength and cardio, and so that's somebody that we think fits squarely within the target market that we are trying to build for. And so we know that a bunch of these athletes will be at these High Rocks races. And so we both went and competed on our own, and, we have to be in it if we're going to be building in this space. People are pretty serious. And, it was a fun side quest on the way to the Ironman that we're training for in November as well. But we wanted to make a splash at the race to figure out, how do we actually stand out, and how do we get people's attention? How do we get people to like then go and look up the app and figure out, like, learn more about what we're doing, et cetera. And so what we did is we built a similar performance chart, but for the High Rocks races. And then we put flyers for this in every bathroom, above every urinal, and on the back of every stall door. And essentially what you can do is, it's a similar spider chart where it'll show you like how you stacked up in your event relative to other people in that specific event, both for that race and for all races that have ever actually been done for High Rocks.
Yeah.
And you can just drop in your bib number, and we'll give you this type of analysis. And then you can drop in actually two bib numbers, and you could compare two people on the same chart. So you can see like, oh, like how did Marcos and I actually compare in our High Rocks, like head to head. And it'll also normalize for things where my co-founder Shu, the one woman on the team, also kicked my ass in the High Rocks relative to. So it's good to know that the Hybrd score is actually representative of reality.
So this is what I love about this. And I think this conversation is going to go to AI now a little bit. I'm going to bring it in because what I love about this was, as soon as I got the data, I called Marcos like last May, and like I was like, yo, that fucking High Rocks was a lot harder than I thought. We got a bunch of different whatever things that we got, like penalized or whatever. And then like all I did was I took our data from High Rocks. I love the data tracking. And it said, oh, your sled was too long. Oh, your sled pull was too long. It took too long on the burpees. Like, it just said like all the things that I compared to like what a pro level would be for like 115. And it said, to really get the most out of your training, your running is fine. It's like, your running is fine. Don't worry about your running. Just continue that quality. But it said, emphasize these things. And I was like, dang. And then it helped me create like a program from that. And I think that's where like this algorithmic mindset comes in of like, compare me to this guy, this Nick Bear, for example. He did amazing in these areas, but I sucked at those areas. What do I need to do to close the gap? And I feel like by doing that, with all that data out there, people are going to be so competitive with their programming to like, I don't know, make it happen.
Have you, this is both on topic and a slight off topic, but have you looked at RoxOpt before? I'm good friends
Yes,
with
yeah,
the
I did.
founder.
I did. It's like they give you like a plan, right? Based
Well,
off
they
of
no, they give you more deep dive, like crazy analytics on High Rocks race performance and where you have room to improve than anybody I've
Mhm.
ever seen. It's
Oh, perfect.
phenomenal.
Oh, perfect.
You guys
And it's
should
like
definitely check it
20
out.
bucks for like a report or something like that, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah, I'll
it's
get it.
totally worth it.
Yeah, I'll do that. That's so cool.
Wow. So now we have companies that are breaking down your performance even further.
Yeah, and this guy's a stud. But it's super fun to look at, and he's got some fun stuff in the pipeline where you can actually like put yourself, and like if you wanted to do like a doubles, it would predict what you would have from a doubles time based on two individuals and their previous performances, whether it's mixed doubles, etc. And
Yeah.
it showed me a lot of opportunity areas for my next one, which I'll be hitting in December, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, so like when you do like your performance based stuff, like I know we're talking about high rocks right now, but like when you're comparing, I feel like you can do this with anything really. But talking about like the training, like that's what I love about the app is like it kind of, yeah, let's talk about like what it means for it to start creating the plan, or like
Yeah.
what's that look like for you guys, like in terms of like what it's going to recommend or nudge for the human being like that's using it as like, okay, this is your potential but you're not doing this, like how
Yep.
does that look like?
Yeah. So at some point in the future, we will offer training plans or training recommendations through the app. But in the short term, it's not a priority for us. And so really quick, I just want to clarify why.
Yeah.
When I think about the landscape of athletes, I think about this distribution curve. And on the far left, you have like the more casual athlete, and that's where like the heaviest part of the distribution is. And on the far right, you have the more serious athlete. And we're building for the more serious athlete. And one thing I know about the most serious athletes and that I know personally is that they actually really don't want an app to tell them what to do. And even if they say that they do, if you give them the app that tells them what to do, they don't end up doing it. And so like, you have these people that love to train and work out every day, but they love to train their way. And so for us, like we're building with this very specific customer in mind, and it's just not their priority to get specific, this is the workout you should do every single day recommendations. They more want what I call optimizations, which is, you are over indexing on anaerobic. You should actually start to mix in this, if this is your goal. And so it's less about giving you the specifics. It's more about giving you like guardrails to help you stay within the optimal performance bands. And so that's how we're thinking about this in the very beginning. In the long run, we'll be very well positioned where, because we're considering ourselves like this data aggregation layer for all of the different trainings you do and all the different training tools you use, we'll have all of that data in one place and can use that plus sports science literature to help create very specific training plans for whatever you're trying to do, no matter how niche it is. And so, for example, we are like, if you think about it, we have this metric that is the quantification of fitness, right? And then we'll have tens of thousands of people tracking every workout they do. And we'll see both the inputs and the output and how that output moves over time. And so we should be able to use that to then help create a model that will then give very prescriptive things based on these niche use cases. And so as an example, I am training for an Ironman in November, but I want to maintain an 1,000-pound powerlifting total during that Ironman training block. And how am I supposed to train for that? I have no fucking clue. But like, I'm guessing and I'm trying to figure it out. But if you have enough data points, you can start to piece some of these things together that there isn't standard operating procedure on how to train for, which I'm very excited about.
So then to do an Ironman and then also maintain a 1,000-pound total, what's your weight? That's the
100.
Dude, your strength to weight ratio is that like of a high. Like that's what wrestlers, grapplers, and mixed martial artists is. They
That
don't
was the
like
reason
gain
I was
weight.
a good wrestler is
Yeah.
I was just pound for pound strong.
Did you
But
wrestle
I'm really slow.
162s?
So that's how
Did you wrestle
that's how it
162? Did you wrestle 162s or 152s?
is. And then
Okay,
60s
cool.
my senior year.
Okay, cool. We would have wrestled senior year.
Are you
was
guys
160s all. Yeah, I was 160s all of high school and college, but then I went 152s when I represented Team California.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a harder cut, but I was like, I'm either the B guy at 162 or I'm the A guy at 152 because I know I could beat that guy. Yeah, I cut more, and it was the worst. I was like, I'm being the A guy. I'm not being the B guy, dude.
I did the inverse. There was a guy at 52s in Massachusetts that I knew I couldn't beat, and I was like, all right, screw it, I'm going 60s my senior year. And then I just didn't cut really, and it was like a nice cut, the easiest like coasting of weight cut that I've ever done.
You're like you just drank around. You're like whatever, guys.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I'm having a good time.
you wait, Ben, how old are you?
I'm 31.
Oh shit, we are actually all the same age, so our apples to apples score would be pretty
on point.
Spot on, baby.
Yeah, but it's not often that you find a bunch of 31-year-olds in your scenario here, because oh man, so 1,000 pounds. So what does your total numbers look like, squat, bench, dead?
Yeah.
So right now, my bench, I would estimate my 1 rep max is probably in the 280 to 290 range.
Holy.
My squat is probably 350 to 370 ish, and my dead is in the 450, 475 range.
Solid. Not. I mean, even if you were to have like a 5 to 10. I mean, what do you anticipate your weight being when you do the Ironman?
That's what I don't know. This is like a whole new ballgame for me. I've done a couple marathons, and I've done 150K, and I've done a half Ironman. And when I did my first marathon, I didn't really weightlift at all, and I lost 70 pounds off of my bench 1 rep max. It was gnarly. And so that's when I was like, I got to figure out a better way to do this. I didn't realize that it would be that dramatic.
I wouldn't think so.
I probably lost 10 pounds of body weight in that process too.
Holy cow.
I went from like 3x3, 335 bench to like now I did like a 3x4 the other day at 265. I'm like, dude, same thing, 70 pounds. And mind you, this is not me doing like ultra endurance shit either. This is just like a cut. I was like, wow, like I guess being 30 helps. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is like we just don't have it the way we used to.
No, yeah. I mean, being younger, being much heavier like a year ago, I'm like literally like I'm gonna get back into it. I'm gonna hit this. Like I feel like I can get to like 335. I can get back to at least 1 rep there. And I was like, yo, that was a struggle, man. Like, granted, I've been living at this like 195 for like almost a year, kind of body weight, but like it's cool to see that those components and like how that like sliding scale goes, and then the percentages, because you said also like weight, height, and age as the metrics that kind of get factored into that score. Yeah. You know what? All right, I'm just gonna get.
It's age, weight, and gender. Height technically doesn't count, but it's
no height,
correlated with weight. Gotcha.
Okay. So I mean, a little deeper dive into you a little bit here. So like your team it's you mentioned 4 people. Is it multiple people from Whoop?
3 out of 4 of us used to work at Whoop.
Okay, cool. And then was the rowing member person also a part of the Whoop team as well? Okay, cool.
He was, yeah.
It's a pretty diverse background though. I mean, you guys all came from like different training modalities, I would have to assume. So like, how does that like influence like your guys' like objective and culture?
It's a good question. I think that one thing that it definitely does is I think that we are one of the rare teams where I think our founder market fit literally could not be better than it is. Yeah. And I think that is part of what makes our product good, is that we are building a product that we want to use every single day in our own training, and that we do use every single day in our own training. And so like, obviously there's a lot of the natural stuff of competitiveness and just like drive and grit and willingness to work really freaking hard that comes with the athletic background. But especially when you're building something that like, you're putting your stake in the ground. You're like, I love this. And I want to like, I call it lifestyle engineering to some capacity, where I have made fitness a core part of my everyday life, such to an extent that it is literally my job. And now if I don't work out, I'm not doing my job. And so building that culture with those types of people, et cetera, you just hold yourself to a really, really high bar. And everybody is always, competing who can do more, who can build faster, who can build, like, who has the better ideas.
Yeah.
At some point, someday I'll beat Shu in something physical, but the day is not yet.
It's not yet. That's funny.
Does for the data aggregation, like you've mentioned, like at what level are you guys able to estimate potential VO2 maxes for people at this stage in the game?
We're actually not doing that yet. And the reason why is that the way that a lot of the wearables calculate VO2 max is based on a model called the Daniels model. And it's fine, but it's just not quite.
It's not there.
It's just not there, right? It's hard. Especially it's a really hard problem.
Especially top end stuff. Like I've gotten like top end athletes come in and I'm like, it just like is an 8 to like 15% difference. I'm like, what the what?
Yeah. Or like I'll spend, a month and a half of training where I'm doing 80% zone 2, or like most of my workouts are on the bike, etc. And then I go out and I do one hard interval session. All of a sudden my VO2 max jumps by like 2 points on my Garmin. I'm like, that's not right. But like, thank you, I guess. Like that feels good. But the way that we're thinking about a lot of the stuff that we're doing is there are solved problems and there are unsolved problems. And we're trying to have the table stakes that are needed to build a good the holistic experience on the solved problem side. But
Yeah.
we're really focused on what are the things that nobody else is doing for these athletes that they need in order to train better. And that's the unsolved problem piece.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's interesting because you can just kind of create like a VO2 max like input at some point, like, hey, you did your VO2. I know you guys did your VO2 max, and then you just put it in the app. It's interesting because this is the thing about VO2 max is it's a high. I think it's a really good indicator for a lot of great things for like your health span,
For sure.
but it's not necessarily a great indicator of like how well of an athlete you are in a specific thing, because specificity plays a role. That's why like I'm trying to get my hands on the VO2 master that's circulating around our company, and like do my VO2 max on the skier, the biker, the rower, and stuff like that, and then kind of see, because I might be really good at running VO2, for example, but I might just be shit on the rower. I don't know, because yes, you can have a high VO2 number because you did it off a run, but then how does that actually translate to performance? I don't know.
Right.
I don't think it does. I don't think if you have a high aerobic base doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a great athlete all the time, because there's just a technical component too.
Depends
like,
on the sports, for sure.
Yeah,
arousal.
arousal.
I mean, high VO2 max is not going to make you a good lacrosse player. It'll help for sure, but it's not like that is not what makes or breaks it, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's funny. My hybrid score is technically a little bit higher than Motz's, the rower on my team, but his VO2 max is 60. Mine is 52. Like, he destroys me on that. But there's more than just that factors into fitness.
Which modality? Running specific VO2 for
that was running.
Yeah. That's, I mean, again, we asked that question simply because it's like, the differences that do happen in the modality, because I bet you his VO2 on a row, right, like is even higher, what I mean? Like, and I was more so asking, like, I think just more of like the correlative data, like Seamus is like, hey, you got the option to plug it in if you got it and at what time. And then, you kind of see like how you can kind of back engineer that just to kind of then see, like, I think it would be kind of a cool thing personally, because it's like, all right, then you get to go to actually test it and see how close it is afterwards based on like the estimated one in the future too. Again, just like how good is the software that you guys are kind of steering guesstimate, you know what I mean? Especially with like the estimated maxes. Like I saw that like on the page that you showed us, it was like estimated bench max was like you said, like 280, mid 280s, right? And I was like, I wonder if it's using that model that I read on a bodybuilding forum back in the day, where it was like 0.0333 times your, number of times the weight that you actually hit, and then like add that to that weight and you're there, it's like, it's pretty funny how something that's like a simple little math equation that like came out of left field ends up being a pretty good estimator, and we could use the same thing with like a Harris-Benedict equation for purposes of like, metabolic rates, and, all these things are all estimates at the end of the day. And then,
right.
I mean, shoot, dude, like you kind of blew my mind with like, man, I didn't think about like what would happen as soon as technology literally has the wearable on your face at all times, capturing these things, even if it isn't when you're, even if it isn't sleep, because that doesn't make sense for it to like capturing anything then, maybe, right? But all throughout the day, I'm only eating 1,500 calories. It's like, let's just go back. But then it literally reminds me of that Black Mirror episode. It's like, let me see your last 48 hours or last like week, and it does that like rapid spin through it. Parsing through all that, like, it's funny to think like that was them kind of joking about the future. And it's like, man, it's almost here.
It's here.
Yeah.
That episode was like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And
no, longer than that. It was pre-COVID for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
I remember watching it like at my old house. No, I actually remember watching it when we were living in my when we lived in my parents' condo. So
it's a while back. But yeah, it's true, dude.
I had this the future is now moment when I was in San Francisco for YC, because we had Sam Altman came in as a guest speaker, and he was like talking to us about AGI and the progress that AI has made in the last couple of years, and like when like what is the projection that he sees, etc. And then we took a driverless car Waymo home from the Sam Altman talk, and then got home, and I, a non-developer, just went back to writing code using my AI tools, and I was just like, this is insane. Like, this is wild. This cannot, like, you can't even wrap your head around it 3 years ago.
Well, it's insane, man. The curve is coming, man. Well, it's beyond the curve now. So
can you talk about that a little bit more? So, I mean, kind of bridging into like maybe some future goals, and then also how like you've developed I mean, again, you don't have a formal education in coding necessarily, right? But you now probably understand code to a much higher level than even when I went to college and was like kind of studying code in a sense, right? Like what is that experience like look and feel like to like go in and like start prompting whatever model of you're choosing, which maybe you also tell what model you're using, and then have it be able to come together and spit out something that's like an actual tangible product at the end of it. Like to me, that's like a super, I'd like to do with my son as like almost like a science project. Hey, we use nothing but AI to come up with like this app that's on my kid's phone in like the 5th grade, and people be like, poof.
You can go crazy now. Literally, I was on my bike trainer probably at this point like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I had this idea for making something called Roast My Workout, where you just upload a photo of your post workout stats and it just talks shit to you for no reason. And like I made it within an hour and a half on my phone while on the bike trainer on Zwift. And roastmyworkout.com now works and literally is like this like bike trainer.
Wait, so I can
No way, dude. No way. Put it on
roastmyworkout.com. Like it's super simple, and it's insane how far you can get with simple AI tools these days.
Wait.
But right. I think for me, like
we gotta go. So you bought the domain just for shits and giggles on top of it?
Just for shits and giggles. And now we actually it got a little traction on Reddit, and so I added an email capture. So when you upload an image, it'll basically be like, we need, like, what is your email? Like, roasting your workouts isn't free. This is hard work over here. And then it'll after you put in your email, it'll give you your roast, but then it gives you one email, a single email that is like, hey, I also actually work in this space. If you want to check out what I'm working on, here it is.
That is so dope. That is so dope.
So what would I drop in here?
Any like post workout detail screenshot. So if you like open up your Whoop or your Garmin or whatever it is and just like drop it right in, like just a screenshot of anything you did.
Okay, well,
I want to see this in real time. Marcos's workout from earlier today or yesterday.
My workout. Oh, okay. Wait. Hold on. I have to pull up like a Polar. Speaking of apps that you probably don't remember to use because it's been a few months. Well, let's see. Just a screen grab of like the end result of it.
Yeah,
that's not a good one. I want one
that's the point. That's the point.
All right, cool.
It's not going to matter what you put in.
It's just going to rotate. Okay,
that's crap.
Let me airdrop this really quick. Man, modern technology. Okay.
Dude, airdrop is the best, man.
We're doing a live demo. I can't wait for this to break on me.
Well, I mean, in your defense, you said you only coded it like
90 minutes.
90 minutes. So
it was in one trainer session. I bought the domain after and set up the domain after, but the entire like Replit project was 90 minutes.
That's insane.
All right, drop it in. Enter my email. So now it's a lead funnel for you.
Yep.
Okay. Which email? I'll use my personal one. Jesus, can't type for shit though. Okay. Boom. Generating. Your heart rate is working harder than your entire body just to make it a measly 51 minutes. If these calories burned could translate into effort, you might finally move out of the beginner zone.
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
That's hilarious. So then, okay. And so then from there, you got an email. They're making it creates a little funny thing for you.
Yep. It will send you one email that is like, hey, like I actually do this. I do real things in this space too. If you want to check out those projects, basically.
Dude, that's awesome. I love that. Like you're so creative and like you just have like a meme moment, but also, hey, you could support the real deal.
Okay. Well, answer me this though. Like, okay, so what did the building of that look like? So you're on your Zwift or whatever, you know, I'm assuming Zwift. I don't know.
Yeah, it was Zwift.
You're pedaling away and you get this idea. And then what was the first prompt that you put in there to like get I want to create an app that's going to just make fun of my workout at the end of the day.
Yeah, so I know enough about how the architecture works to be able to be like, I want to create an app where I upload a screenshot of a workout and then it pings the OpenAI API and it says this type of prompt. And then after that, it like basically just shits on you. And then like after you get that, it gives you this like somewhat baked out thing, and then you iterate on each individual piece like one by one. So it was at first, you know, the roast wasn't mean enough, and I was like, all right, we need to make the roast meaner. And then I wanted to add a re-roast button, and then I needed to make it so that you could upload another like image if you wanted to do a different workout, and then add the email capture, and you know, like one by one little things just on.
You're building it out, and then like that's like also creating the website too. Like,
yeah, how's it doing?
It will literally do it live for you. If you haven't checked out Replit, you like after this, go to replit.com.
We're doing Replit right now, dude.
Replit.
It's
okay. And so that one, okay. So that's another tool that you use that like allows you to
build
basically
sites.
create all the, what is it writing it in, like HTML5 or any of the newer versions of it, or what is it like? Because you don't need, that's the thing.
It
It's like,
kind of depends. It depends on what you're doing. It'll give you a text app. I think that Replit is one of those tools that is actually, I literally published a blog post about this today, which I'll send you guys after the fact.
Please.
But one of the things I did was I basically talked about how our team functions as a team where 3 out of 4 of the people are not technical, yet we're all contributing to a code base for an app that is paid and like successful and has raised money.
Yeah, because you're just transcribing what you need, and like Replit's or whatever the concept is helping you out code it, but like you're like trying to get this problem solved in the real world in like the coding world.
Right, but there's you've probably seen stuff on Twitter about like vibe coding, and you can get pretty far with vibe coding these days, and like how fast tools have developed, etc. But for something to work long term and actually be production ready, you need to have an architect that understands how is this going to work in the long term, and how do we need to actually structure this, and like what are the pitfalls that we need to avoid and things like that, because AI isn't quite there yet.
Yeah.
And so there's actually this really funny thing where, if you guys have ever worked with like a product manager before, the way that the product manager to developer relationship usually works is you, as a product manager, write a bunch of user stories and user requirements. And you say, as a user, I want to be able to do this thing. And you do that a bunch of times in like very, very detailed fashion. And then you give that to the developer. And then the developer says, okay, I understand what the business wants me to do here. And then we'll go and actually implement that set of requirements. Now there's this like extra step where we write, like me as a PM would write user requirements, give the user requirements to the developer, and the developer will take it and write technical requirements. And it'll be like, okay, non-technical person that is going to write this code, you need to have 3 files, 1 file for this part of the logic, 1 file for this part of the logic. And then this third file actually already exists, but you need to update like this piece of the logic. And then you can take all of that and actually go and prompt with the AI to like both explain what certain code snippets mean and to help actually implement the logic changes, etc. Like the way that I kind of liken it is, I can't write code personally. I literally cannot, but I can a little bit kind of read it.
Yeah.
And so it's like high school Spanish, where if you speak Spanish to me, I like absolutely will not understand. And I definitely cannot speak Spanish to you. But if you write it down, I can like kind of figure out the gist of what's going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like it's like that, where AI is actually a fairly effective interpreter, but any grammatical issue is then a code bug.
Yeah. That makes sense. And I figured as much too, because I think I went through the rabbit hole. What was it? Man, it had to have been about a year ago. And I was like, man, what if AI is good enough to like help me just send my receipts into Google Drive faster, like a better, like just an easy scanning app, because I don't want to pay for it. So I was like, can I try to create it? And I kind of got through like the inner working process of it. I think it even got to like, I think it was like trying to be a job application. I probably should have been like, hey, I needed to work on the web versus that, you know what I mean? And just like access to the camera, like, I mean, all the things that you could possibly think about is like how to then actually like get it to that next step. Right. And then it was like a week later, Google Drive is like, hey, by the way, you can scan documents now. I was like, sick. That's all I wanted it to do the whole time.
I already figured it out for you. No, I love that. You know, one of the things it's so cool. I was just thinking about this the other day. So Marcos and I share something, and maybe Ben, if you share this is going to be like the craziest one. But like Marcos and I were speed solvers at some point.
No, you're a speed solver. I can just solve Rubik's Cube.
Okay. So I
can solve a Rubik's Cube, but I cannot.
Okay, perfect. Everyone here can do it. Perfect. So everyone is going to understand this. Sorry to the audience, it's going to get really niche, but so I can solve a Rubik's Cube. My fastest time officially was like 9 seconds. There you go. I love it. And I was a speed solver, but I was
9 seconds.
That was my fastest time. But dude, the world record's like 3.
That's an average time too, by the way.
Dude, that's insane.
Like, so when I did my speed solve, listen to this. When I did my speed solve, when I was like 12 years old, I was in the top 1,000, let's just say solves, right? For that solve. When you look at the solves now, I'm in the top 100,000. Like, that's how like fast the space has gone. It's kind of like High Rocks. It's like another community that's going. So I'm trying to bring this back to AI though. It's like, so a Rubik's Cube is a 3x3, right? We add a layer of complexity to that in the coding by creating a 4x4. So think of like your like technical outreach layering, right? 5x5, 6x6, 7x7. What if we added another level of complexity that's not layers, but breaking the model on itself? That's the square one. That's the puzzle called the square one. I'm wondering if AI could get to a point where it can break itself and then remodel itself back to a cube. That's how I'm thinking about artificial intelligence, because I've been playing with some models recently, and I'm like, what if there was something out there like that like it doesn't need its own rules to stick within to like get to a solution. So I don't know. I'm just thinking very like fantasy land right now, but I'm like,
You're out of my depth on this one, my friend.
Anyways, we'll speak on that like on another time. But I wanted to bring this back to the conversation with the Hybrd app. Community is a big thing. I don't want to, again, I don't want to kind of make this comparison, but I think it's such a thing to strive for. But for example, the Strava app I think it's like a dating app, people.
Strava is phenomenal. Strava is a great product.
Strava is a great product. It's like people are communities on
there. You literally find singles in your area on Strava?
Dude, that's what the running clubs became.
If you guys saw, I literally posted on LinkedIn yesterday an April Fool's joke that was inspired by an old business idea I had. That was, you build a dating app where you integrate with Strava, and you can only get access if you have above a certain training volume over a trailing period. And then if you ever dip below that threshold, you're kicked off until you get back above it. So it's basically Raya for athletes.
Your current is like how much effort you're putting into your work.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't have to be like the best out there, but like you have to be like pretty serious. Like, it's a lifestyle thing. And so you want people that share that lifestyle.
Oh my God.
I wanted to ask you, is Hybrd creating something like that? I know you had that piece of comparing yourself, but do you have that piece where there's going to be like almost like a community forum, clubs? And I was also thinking, because this is something that we're creating like a whole club with Momentum, that company that I wanted to connect you with, was like, what if you had coaches on there as well to create programs, and then people can jump into a club and then like buy that club's like program or something? Like, again, this is kind of like Fantasyland thinking, like, but what are your thoughts on community at least?
Yeah, so when I think about 10 years from now, what would I bet everything I have to my name on for what will be relevant in fitness? It's that fitness will be inherently even more personalized than it is today, and community is still going to matter. And so the way that I think about what we're doing is we are going to build community into the Hybrd app. But before we do that, we need to get the single player mode right. And the reason for that is that a community-based app is only valuable to a user if the community exists. And so there's this chicken or the egg problem. And as a early stage startup, how do you get that community to already exist? You spend a metric fuck ton of money. I don't want to spend said amount of money. And so what we're doing is we're getting the single player mode to work right first. So it's going to be a tool that will help athletes actually get better and understand their training and performance, et cetera. And then we can build a community experience on top of that. That'll then be like a viral growth engine that, you can build these social loops on top of.
Perfect.
Sick.
Cool. I love it, man. Well, we're at an hour. I'm kind of have something after this, so I just don't want to. I want to make sure we're respectful of that time. But Ben, where can people find Hybrd? You guys are live at this time. Anything else you'd like to share, and we can kind of close it out here?
No, you can find us in the App Store. Just search Hybrd, HYBRD. Or you can find us at hybrd.com.
Perfect. I need one of those hats, by the way. When they go live, I gotta buy one.
We can make that happen.
Sweet. I like it. Is it a dad hat? Turn to the side for me. You got the dad hat?
No, they're Boca. They're actually, these are, I live and die by these hats. These hats are fantastic. When we were first like trying to figure out like what type of swag should we get to give out to our athletes and things along those lines, these were one of the more expensive options, but it's totally worth it because it's become a lot of people's like every day I'm gonna wear that hat because the hat rocks.
I'm
not the design, just literally it's comfortable. It's a great hat.
Dude, the freaking LMNT hat that they sent in the mail as like a gift for just being an insider, I wear it like every day. And it was like, what an easy way for like marketing purposes too. Like,
exactly.
It has enough comfort. You're like, yeah, this is nice. And it's like, also I didn't pay for it. So if I beat it to shit, then whatever. But it, like literally you can have 100 people be advertising. Like, what's that logo? What's that H stand for? So hey, exactly. me and Seamus will rock it once you have it go live because I'm a sucker for a good hat. That's for sure.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But dude, Ben, also just, I don't know. I feel like I met you somewhere else before. I don't know how or why, but like you came on, it was like super familiar, giving me like super familiar vibes. Granted, I know you said you were from the East Coast, so there is that. But dude, thank you so much for your time. And I mean, talking about so many different like facets of what it like looks like to, be a modern creator, like the opportunities that AI and someone that doesn't even have like, the general understanding right now, to me, that was like, that's invaluable for people to hopefully got to that part of the episode here and be able to understand that like it's only limiting self-beliefs at this point in time. Like if you have an idea, you can try to get it to somewhere else where you then have, like you just said, someone that's a little more technical. And it also helps showcase that like, yes, 3 members on your team don't have formal experience with like coding, but you still like certain values and certain jobs that may feel a little obsolete with AI are still necessary in today, because you might finally reach that hiccup that requires that person that does have that more professional touch there. So
Yeah.
thanks for really like clarifying that.
No problem. One quick thing I'll leave you with is because we use AI every day, I get a lot of people asking me things around like, oh, well, do you think it's going to replace a bunch of jobs, et cetera, et cetera? And I don't know the answer, but I think that a good way for anybody listening to this to think about that is that if the AI is good enough that it's replacing a bunch of people's jobs, it's sure as hell good enough to help you make a bunch of money if you just take action. And so bias to action, just figure it out. As barrier to entry gets lower and lower, agency is the thing that's going to separate winners from losers.
Super agency. Reid Hoffman, man. Yeah.
Let's go, man. Well, guys, thank you again for listening in. This has been super informative. You can find a link to the Hybrd app store down below here. It is live. It's good to go. Being able to kind of take a look at this, again, very novel idea and kind of lumping it all together. You got to see what it looks like ahead of time. Well, I'm sharing the screenshots, but now you get that full-fledged thing. And you already know where to find us. We are the Macro Perspective. We're still working on getting, innovative young people and people that have been in the field and experts in their field on this podcast at all times. So we really appreciate a like, a comment, a subscribe. Go support everybody that we've had on. We have over 150 episodes at this time where people have, graced us with an hour or over an hour of their time. So go support the companies that have come on here and given us time and see if there's something that can work in your training modalities. And until next time.
Thanks for having me.